has failed to provide sewer to the whole town, and the original intent of the sewer interceptor for Little Cottonwood Canyon was to provide service for the whole canyon to lessen the risk of sewage spills and avoid trucking sewage around on the roadways. And I have personally reviewed and obtained the origin documents of the sewer interceptor and read them. In addition, there's maps as well, which, you know, it's pretty easy to look at a picture and say, this is where the service area of the sewer is intended to serve. And I think last month I mentioned that one option for the town would be to condemn the Altaskelis sewer lateral that's a mile or two long, and it's 30 years old, and inspect it, take it off their hands. The ski lift company should be in the skiing business. They should not be in the sewer business. There's a municipality here that should make those arrangements. Furthermore, that sewer lateral is 30, I can't remember, it was probably 93 or 94 when it went in. So it's 30 years old now. Snowbirds has been replaced twice, I think. And then if the town did that, the first thing they would gain is additional sewer customers, which they need in the basin. So they should allocate a large sum of additional money to inspect and plan for everyone in town to be on the sewer. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, Rob.
Other members of the public would like to comment on the sewer 2026 sewer fund? Excuse me. 2 more minutes.
1 more minute. I feel very close to you right now.
Would you like me to reposition?
No. I could move over too, but I'm against the leg.
Okay, it's 5 minutes after the hour. I would entertain a motion to adjourn the public hearing.
I move that we adjourn the public meeting for the amended FY26 sewer fund budget.
Second.
John?
Second.
Favor?
Aye.
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 It is adjourned. I would like to call to order. My throat. I would like to call to order the Town Council meeting of July 9th, 2025. And our first item of business is to accept citizen input, if there are any.
Mark Hagan. Meeting earlier this spring, Mr. Cawley referred to discussing municipal public utilities. He referred to the known constraints. And I would just point out that if there are known constraints, how come they've never been vocalized in a public meeting or written and distributed And what are they? How many constraints are there? What emanates, from what documents do the constraints emanate? It's totally silent on it. And I would urge the candidates for public office in the fall election to familiarize themselves with the known constraints, itemize them, and be able to discuss them and with the public during their campaigns. And it's interesting that Mr. Moxley was recently back in public service as a member of the planning commission. And now he's running for office again. And so it would seem that there would be ample expertise available, either from advice of counsel or Mr. Moxley himself, to be able to explain what the constraints are, what properties are affected, and just list them all. I would also note that when Mr. Moxley introduced himself at the meeting prior to his appointment to the planning commission, he listed off, some of the people that he had represented in town. And he left out two, both of which I thought they were extremely notable. Number one, he left out the town of Alta, who we represented when the Shran settlement deal was made, and he also represented me. And I would just urge the elected officials and those running for office to familiarize themselves with the service of public utilities in town and what documents and public records they would refer to that govern the provision of those utilities. Thank you.
Any members of the public would like to make a comment? All right, with that, we will move on, and I would like to welcome our nearby neighbor and guest, Dave Fields, and say it is nice of you to come talk with us, and I hope you do it more often.
Well, thank you, Mayor. I appreciate the opportunity to be here. I wanted to give you all an update on what we're up to this summer and to look you out if you love for new activities going into next winter. Our main area of focus for this summer is completing the new restaurant that was called Midgad. We're trying to come up with a new name for that at the moment. I was just up there and all the glass is in. It's a large glass cube and it is stunning. The views are absolutely incredible up there, and that's scheduled to be open and serving our guests at the start of the winter season. We've worked with Layton Construction on that, and they've been a great partner on that building. So it's ahead of schedule, and we're very happy with how that's going. Other summer projects include replacement of snowmaking pipe. Each of the hotel properties are doing various remodels to their buildings, and we will be doing some parking lot paving later this summer. We're also installing 4 new VEASAN towers this year, and that will happen. Understanding is Solitudes will go in first, then Altas, and then Snowbirds. So that will be happening later in the summer. We don't have the exact timeline on that yet. We continue to work on the parking situation and traffic in the canyon. That's a never-ending effort that we're always trying to improve. We were happy with the utilization of the ski bus and the new CS1 and CS2 shuttles provided by a private contractor via UTA last year, and we're happy that will continue. We have encouraged them to come up with a more understandable naming convention, which we get out. That seems to be a little confusing to everybody who uses it. But we continue to lean heavily on the UTA rideshare program. We had 34 rideshare vans last winter for our staff, and we'll continue to incentivize them to use that program. It works really well for us, as well as private shuttles through Alta Shuttle, who has taken over the transportation of our guest programs when Canyon Transportation folded. We were also very happy with the UDOT sticker enforcement. We'd like to see that only improve in the coming years with the adoption, the number of stickers that were issued, and the positive response from our customers was really nice to see. Everybody understands the goal and seem to be working well towards getting more prepared vehicles in the canyon, so we were happy about that. We continue to reduce the highway parking to only entry 1 to 4. On the south side of the road, there's no north side highway parking or parking below entry 1 and above entry 4. We felt like through our management and guest cooperation, that went quite well this past winter. And we continue to try to get more and more people on the bus and in shuttles and in vans and carpooling. We will be expanding our carpool parking lot this year, adding more carpool parking and more EV charging stations at the resort. But that's a never ending issue, as is the dynamic that we see without the skiers parking snowbird and either riding the bus or hitchhiking or being picked up by friends. So you'll see greater enforcement of that this winter, trying to discourage people from doing that, but that's also a difficult problem to solve. We did spend quite a bit of time studying what we call the red snake here in this canyon this year, and spent a lot of time looking at traffic patterns, and we continue to see a large influx of vehicles in the canyon after 1 o'clock when the parking reservations here at Alta are lifted. And Big Cottonwood Canyon also is seeing that dynamic, and reports from the Salt Lake Tribune and others this winter were that they're seeing increased traffic congestion in the canyon. And our analysis is that we have a high and higher than historical average density of vehicles in the canyon at the end of the day. And the highest density that I observed was in the Albion parking lot at 3 o'clock on a weekend afternoon, less so in the gold miners lot, and a lot of our customers have started filtering out by 3 o'clock. And so I think we really see a lot of people taking advantage of the no reservations, both in Big and Little Cottonwood Canyon. And that's a dynamic that I'm hearing from other resort operators around the country, is people shopping for parking after 1 o'clock. So the canyon still doesn't move more than about 1,100 cars in an hour on a given day. And if we have more vehicles in the canyon at the end of the day, we're going to have more congestion. People always ask me about Oktoberfest, so updates on that this year. We're expanding the grounds a little bit down into what we call the parking strip in front of the Snowbird Center, providing more shade for people to get out of the sun, especially on those August days. We are adding a new shuttle for Oktoberfest for guests and employees this year. It is being supplied by driver provider. So we're excited to see if we can get more people using that and fewer people driving. But we're scheduled to start on August 9th, and it'll go through October 12th, Saturdays and Sundays and Labor Day. Other upcoming events that we have going on, the Cirque Series is this Saturday, and then the big trail running event that we do is the Speak Up, and that's Pioneer Day weekend, July 25th, 26th. I think that's everything.
Dave, my contention or conjecture really is that there is an unfilled demand for people riding the bus, and that is that the bus service is inadequate to carry everybody who would like to ride the bus. Do you have any sense of that?
We hear from a lot of guests and employees that at the peak hours between 8 and 9 AM, there's not enough supply. And it gets much worse in the evenings at 3:30 to 5:30 PM. Because people may not ride the bus up, but they expect to be able to get on the bus to go home.
Right.
So the evenings are the biggest problem we have for capacity. But we do see some of it in the mornings, on weekends and powder days as well.
Yeah,
Cause it's seats on bus, not necessarily,
standing room.
yeah, they're standing room, it's not. We need more buses, but the buses are maxing out on capacity.
Sitting and standing.
Yeah, I have never asked that before.
And at certain times. In prior years, UTA was putting so many people on the ski bus. That they felt like they were overloading the braking and transmission of the buses, and so they had to. Stop letting so many people on, because they
Wow.
were literally packed all the way to the windshield.
Wow,
So they've stopped doing that, which I think is good.
well, safety wise, it's good.
Yeah.
For transportation wise, it's wrong direction. Well, I've been encouraging UTA to try to tackle this problem in a sense of. Can you come up with some idea of how many people would you take if you had more capacity? And that's hard to measure, but I'm gonna keep pushing on it.
Good. And
We'll see what happens.
that's right.
Okay, any other?
John?
Yeah, yeah, Dave, any kind of quick update on the gondola? What UDOT's thinking? We haven't really heard, hasn't been in the news much lately. What's your take on it?
Well, I attended a hearing a couple weeks ago. And it was an administrative record hearing. Where the plaintiffs were able to present. Contentions about documents and information that was not included in the administrative record. And Judge Tina Campbell, who's hearing the case, took that under advisement. And I have not heard any projected timeline on when she'll rule on that. That's the only news I have.
So it's really that the lawsuits grind on and everything's on hold pending the resolution of the various lawsuits.
That appears to be the status from my perspective.
Thank you.
Do you see any catalytic effect from the Olympics as we start closing in on that? Or do you think they're separate or not, or unrelated?
I think the judicial system moves at its own pace, regardless of what's happening in 2034 is an observation.
Yeah, okay, I agree with that.
Yeah.
Didn't mean to put you on the spot, but it's curious.
That's just my take,
Yeah,
because whatever happens here will then be appealed likely to the 10th Circuit Court of Appeals in Denver, which could be a whole other timeline that we don't know.
yeah. Longer than 9 years.
No.
No, I have no idea either. And I used to know one of those guys.
Okay, any other questions of Dave? Oh, we got him here. Yeah, go ahead.
Just a comment, answering John, so, last night, the mayor of Cottonwood, the current mayor of Cottonwood Heights. Announced that UDOT was in discussions with the lawsuits. To see if there is some workaround, to allow some short-term transportation solutions to be implemented. I would comment that I thought his comment was overly optimistic. But the fact is that the lawsuits are in discussion with UDOT right now.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dave.
Yeah.
Good to see you.
Thank you.
Yes. My pleasure.
Come again,
Mike.
tell a friend.
Good afternoon.
Hey, Mike.
Hi, Mike.
I'll start by just saying, thank you for everybody's patience and understanding with everything that's going on here in town of Althea this summer. I'm sure with all the projects we have going on in the ski area, there's a lot going on, more than we've ever had. And there's a little dust in the air, I'd say, that's out there. Few updates, tonight we have the Wasatch Trail Run here in town of Alta. Starting at 6, I believe, that's 6 or 6:30. The Wild Fall Festival is coming up on July 20th. We're opening the campground on Friday. We open the road's been open for a little while and going on. project updates, so the Albion Day Lodge. They poured some initial footings, the big thing that's up and coming is on, they've got a 500-yard pour to do. Which is looking at July 18th is when that's going to happen. And we're looking at working with Chris on, we'll have to have a noise variance for construction. I want to start at midnight to get that pour done in that day. And they'll have some lights and some other things, but there'd be a lot of traffic that day, in particular with those trucks coming up and down. I think it's 75 cement trucks. Gotta come up to Canyon.
75 trucks, did you say?
75 cement trucks.
Yeah.
Good play, good stay in the house.
Plus 2 pumper trucks will be here on site pumping concrete full time. I mean, so it's kind of an amazing undertaking that they're doing. During the month of August, they'll be bringing up for probably about 3 weeks, the semis will be coming up and down the canyon with precast panels, 12 feet width and various lengths. So we'll be working with UDOT a little bit on that, trying to get through that construction area down there safely through that period of time. September will be steel erection for that project. Steel will be erected. So there'll be a crane on site in the Albion parking lot, probably most of August and in a fair amount of September. Dealing with that project. Across the parking lot from that equipment storage building, that building's continuing to move forward. They're working on shoring. They're cutting back the wall and doing the shoring. That will happen for the next 2 or 3 weeks. Looking at sometime in August, early August, they will start to pour cement on that side of the building. For the footings, and then that will be that building board. There's no panels coming up on that one. Be poured in place. That's going on. The Vicent Tower work has started and now to start this week. They're basing out the west end of the Wildcat lot. 6 to 8 week project. That they'll be flying and working up in the castle area with that. Our cross tow utilities project, where all the pipe has been fused, and it's also should go cross tow utilities and town water system.
Right.
Utility project.
Combined together. We are going to start the digging on the cross tow next week. We're starting on the west end a little bit. It's going to take us some time, given the time frame we're looking at. We're asking to start at both ends, work towards it. So we'll be starting on this upper end next week in earnest there, trying to get some of that stuff under the ground and clean up the trails and get people going through there. The Supreme Lift, so both the top and bottom terminals have been repositioned and they're back in place. They were able to bring a crane in and lift the top one off, and then they took 90 tons of pressure off of the footing and used 2 bulldozers to move it 3 inches. They needed to move to give it proper alignment. And then for the bottom terminal, they took it off right in an 800-ton crane, lifted the terminal off, lifted the footing right out of the ground, and cleaned up the footing hole, put some flowcrete in there, and then they reset that footing in there and repositioned and relifted the bottom terminal on. So the both top and bottom terminals are in place. All of the tower footings have been poured for inside the campground. So they do have to do the work below the campground and above the campground in the next few months. But we anticipate that they're on schedule that probably by early October, the lift should be up and running and ready to go. What's going on there? So, those are kind of the things going on here. Just a few.
Yeah.
Maybe you could add to that. Add some more.
Yeah, the one that's done is we got the paving done, the asphalt paving done in the town of Alta, new culvert in, so we can check
Yeah.
one off the list that's completed. That's there. Any questions?
Listen, this lady, Mike.
Where will the Wildtown Festival be with the construction and the equipment? You know?
It will still be based out of the grill. I think we'll be okay till then. But we're gonna lose some more parking spaces, be a little further into the summer here when I start doing the panels and steel, at least I'm sure. It's coming, you know. I think we'll get through. Got through the 4th, we got the 24th, you know, we'll get through that, we probably go to somebody to their age, but.
Thanks, Mike.
Yeah,
It's a lot of stuff.
that is a lot of stuff. Maybe, John, you want
Thanks,
to?
Mike.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Impressive. Okay, Utah Local Governments Trust with Josh.
Hey, how's everybody doing?
Good job.
All right.
I've met with you before, but more recently it's been over Zoom, so it's good to see everybody in person except for these guys that are still over Zoom.
Happens.
Did I see John on there?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
John, it's good to see you. Miss seeing you in real life too. So you guys have a prettier view than most of the council meetings that I attend, so I appreciate that. It's a lot easier to come up to something like this. You guys rival Springdale. I came up just to give you an update on the city's insurance. So years and years and years ago, my name's Josh McHale, by the way. I work with the Utah Local Governments Trust. I'm your risk finance consultant. And I have been at the trust. This is my 17th year. I was originally the consultant that helped the city to join the trust years and years ago. But shortly after that, another colleague of mine worked with the account. But a few years ago, the account came back to me, and it's been great working with you guys again. This renewal, the insurance for the city, it includes your workers' compensation for general liability, auto physical damage, and property. And so I will kind of follow your lead. If you want me to go through the whole renewal, I'm happy to do that and answer questions along the way. Or we can keep it at 30,000 feet, whatever you like. So.
What do you guys feel? Are you comfortable with?
I went
this?
through the whole thing page by page, and I thought it was mostly good news. There were actually, were a very small increase and a couple of decreases, and there weren't really a lot of, I'd say, big items in the package. Would be my take on it, Roger.
Okay.
You kind of have a mixed bag. A lot of lines of premium went down in insurance this year. I supplied what's called an EMOD, and that's a rating for your insurance across each line. And the nice thing is that the city's EMODs are, for the most part, in pretty good shape too. So your performance as well. I tried to go back and look at your losses on workers' compensation. And it's 1 in 5 years, and it's small. So your performance is very healthy. And that's not to say that you don't have significant exposure, because you do. So you're definitely outperforming what your exposure would anticipate that your performance would be. So that's good. I did mention that it's kind of a mixed bag on losses. I'm sorry, on increases. The overall insurance is down for the town. If we look at what you were paying at your last renewal versus your upcoming renewal, or the renewal that you're in now. So it's down 2%, which, unlike health insurance and your homeowner's policies, things like that, the trust kind of takes a fresh look every single year, and we look at our reserves and the performance of our members, and also what your EMODs are doing, those ratings. And your premiums will fluctuate, like you noticed this year. Your liability is down over $2,000, your liability insurance. Your property insurance is up, and it's not because of performance. It's because we needed to bring our rate up at the trust so that we had a little bit more money for reserves. Although our property rate is still very healthy and very competitive. Your auto physical damage premium is up slightly. Your auto liability premium, on the other hand, is down almost $1,000. And your workers' comp premium is up just a little bit. Part of that's due to payroll. Part of that is due to class codes that are dictated by the National Council for Compensation Insurance. So my overall thoughts on Alta is that you're outperforming majority of the local municipalities across the state. We insure 91% of the cities and towns. We have a good handle on their performance overall. And you guys are not on any sort of list on our end. There's no red flags that have to do with the town. And we also really appreciate the relationships that we have in place. and the people at the town that we get to work with on a regular basis, so.
Well, I wish we were on a list of star performers. Which I guess we are, but you don't keep a list of that.
Yeah, you're not on the naughty list.
No, no,
That's
Well,
not important.
It's pretty amazing that the overall combined premium was down 2% when the property was up over 20%. So the other categories resulted in actually an overall 2% decline in the premium. That seems like a fantastic result, and we appreciate all the effort that you surely put into that.
And you know, I mentioned earlier, if it wasn't for the fact that our reinsurance partner costs have gone up so much. You probably would have realized an even further decrease. The property rate, we haven't really moved our rate along for years. And so that rate increase was kind of necessary on our end, so that we could, a lot of and with most of our members, about 70% of the premium that we collect goes out the door to underwriting and reinsurance costs. So we did bring up that rate a little bit so that we have more claims, but luckily our property program has performed so well that we are still well below what the market is charging. And thanks to your performance and your emails across the other lines, you still did get a decrease in spite of that, you know, irregular increase in the property rate.
And our superior view.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I think the credit is due to our staff and our marshal's office. They've done a marvelous job in keeping themselves safe, our populace safe, and our stuff safe. And that's showing up in your report. And that's great.
And congrats on the new building. We've got that insured. And anytime you purchase a building that's made out of cement, you're gonna get a good deal on the insurance. That's also another plus.
Yeah, it's
Hey,
good.
well, any questions for me?
This premium reflects the increases associated with owning that building, is that correct?
The building was added after we did the renewal.
So should we anticipate another bill for that?
There will be, Jen, I think that it's included, I think we've got it included. It's
I
just-
don't know if it was in your numbers in the report,
Yeah,
but I did receive a separate invoice and
yeah, and it's not,
I think the total, cause across the various coverages was like, it was under $2,000. For sure,
Per annum, or is it a 6-month period?
per annum.
so, and then
If-
we will be doing a property appraisal on that building.
Right,
Because I know that you guys had an agreed amount that you paid for it.
Yes.
But we still do a property appraisal every 5 years and anytime you add a new building. The reason we do that is because from an insurance standpoint, the important metric to consider is replacement cost. And so we'll have an appraisal come and do a commercial grade appraisal on it. And we will get a value that is, if this building were to burn down, even though it's also gonna burn down. But just if there was an incident that happened where we had to replace it. So that value, the amount that is associated with that, it could go up or down, depending on what that property appraisal comes. But just know it's not a market appraisal. It's not the same type of appraisal that you would use if you were to go sell that building or to prepare to buy it. It's for replacement cost.
and then you're gonna do the other buildings as well, same
Yes,
aspect.
yes, we are going to be appraising all of the buildings. And equipment in the open, pavilions, things like that, bathrooms. So.
Is that done completely using your determination on estimates, or like, could you value yourselves to like the stuff we've done? We've got this great report on the buildings as far as replacement costs and or repairs.
So it's done by a third party, it's done by Lowry and Associates.
Okay,
Yeah, and
Right.
so they use commercial appraisal software to do it. And it's likely the same commercial appraisal software that you guys have had done also. Although with the caveat that it is replacement cost, so.
Go ahead.
I have a question for you. I don't wanna jump in front of anybody else on the call, any council members. Just occurred to me to ask if you have anything to share with us, any thoughts about our situation in the wildland interface and any impacts you're seeing to insurance rates that municipalities are paying. you know, around the state, because their properties, their have exposure to wildfire.
So one of the things that we're a little bit different, because we certainly insure a lot of communities that have a high risk and exposure. We insure Bryce Canyon City. We know there's a big fire that's active on that area right now. We insure small little communities all over the place there in the mountains. We take a little bit different of an approach than the commercial insurance carriers do, where they look at these communities and go, there's so many structures that are built out of wood. There's high fire danger. There's lots of wind in this area. They have this many fires every year. Because we're member owned, we've had a lot of communities, government, local government agencies come over to the trust in the last 5 years, because the commercial insurance market has gone up significantly. And we operate a little bit differently. We have everybody's individually underwritten, but mainly what we're looking at is performance. So if we have continual fire issues or continual loss to property, it can drive your rate up, but it doesn't drive your rate up at the same pace that it would with the commercial carrier, because you also have the offset of the local and the other members. So it is a little bit of a different approach. I don't have any particular anxiety over groups that are in the mountains. Fire loss is very rare. I mean, I know that that's one of the biggest concerns, especially as it comes to property, but our bigger cause of loss is flooding. We have a lot more inputs. Sure. So we're not as concerned about that. It's just more performance based. So
Good.
But I do think fire remains our, you know, as long as that part of the policy is robust, that is I think, speaking for many, that is our biggest concern.
yes, and
For big loss.
the scary thing with fire is usually fire is big loss, right? Because you can even have a
Always.
fire contained to a small part of the building, but then you're dealing with smoke damage and water damage because you're putting out the fire. So fire was definitely one of our bigger concerns too. And it's a great reason to make sure all of your properties are insured. Luckily, we don't see a ton of loss due to fire. We still see it year in and year out. But making sure plumbing is up to par and making sure that pipes aren't freezing and stuff like that is huge, because we see a ton of flood losses. So,
I would expect that we have more exposure to a personal injury because we own some property we didn't own before. The public are using.
yeah, we do what's called premises liability, and a lot of our cities and towns that we insure are constantly expanding their overall exposure footprint through acquiring new properties, acquiring new land. If you purchase land and it's left in its natural state or condition, the exposure that comes with that is very minimal, thanks to some legislative protections that are in place.
No, I was referring to OLS.
But when you purchase a new building, then you've got to step it up a little bit. You've got to stay on maintenance. You've got to make sure that you don't have dangerous areas, no sharp edges on sidewalks or railing, that the steps are in good shape. And we are happy to send a member of our loss prevention team to come and do a quick assessment of that building to make sure two things: that it's safe, that everything's safe, but also they can put their eyes on it as if they were an OSHA inspector, and make sure that if OSHA were to show up, there would not be any sort of circumstance that could lead to a violation. So we're happy to do that. It doesn't cost anything. We'll do it for our membership at their request.
And it is a valid OSHA criteria meeting determination if we use that resource.
Yeah, so if we'll come and point out anything that they could potentially take you forward with the violation.
So very cool.
Yeah,
We have a lot of buildings that are in your places, right?
take advantage of it.
And I recommend if you do that, I don't know if you're planning on moving into the building or whatever your use is. You'd want to definitely have that inspection done once I get moved into the building, because they can also help you with the way that furniture structures are set in the building. Certain structures have to be bolted to the wall. They can look at types of chemicals that are stored and make sure that they're not stored too adjacent to each other, things like that. If you're not planning to move a lot into that building, we'd be happy to do that inspection whenever you'd like. So.
We're the kind of baseline is we expect the utilization of the building to be very similar to what it has done
That's
the last 25 years.
kind of a community center, right?
Yes.
And now it's definitely a community center.
Okay, anything else for Josh? Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, thanks for having me.
Thanks, Josh.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks for good news.
Okay, yes, come back with more. Questions regarding the departmental reports from John? Or?
I thought the departmental, go ahead,
Go ahead.
go ahead, Dan.
I was just gonna say, you know, Chris and Molly, I think it's great how you guys included in the report, you know, the collaboration with ASL on all these projects to give them the permit to pour 500 trucks worth of concrete, whatever that number was. You know, after and before hours, it needs to happen. It's sensitive to the community. I think it's great you guys put that in there and got ahead of that. So thanks.
Yes, it's been a topic. It's been a hot topic in all.
I'm sure.
So.
So thanks for good work. Really solid work.
Okay, John?
Seems like a lot of good things going on at the town office. A lot of worthwhile projects happening, and by and large, you know, marching down the road, and that's exciting. The emergency management. I'd be lying to you if I told you I was looking forward to the cybersecurity training. I have a little bit of a mental block about that one, but overall, it looks like a lot of good things going on. I did have a question or two on the financials. Would this be an appropriate time to ask that?
Yeah.
Jen's
I-
nodding.
Yeah, the capital project fund transfer, I was trying to figure out what it was this year compared to other years, Jen. And it
We haven't
seems like there's an
calculated it yet.
extra, I'm sorry?
Oh, we haven't calculated it yet.
Oh.
There was, so the way, there's a delay. So the FY, let's see, we're now in 26. So it doesn't get transferred until the fall. So you would have seen, as far as cash flow goes, I think it was 522,000 within FY 25, but that was for essentially FY 24. So Steve and I will start working here in August, calculate that number for FY 25, because it's based on the, you know, the June 30th date and your balances and all that, and then we transfer it usually sometime September, October, somewhere in there.
Right. So it's
So
on a
there's
cash
always a
basis,
delay.
not an accrual basis.
Well, if you're looking at, and this is where I think some of this, when you're looking at the projections and cash flow, right, then that's going to affect your your actual number, but it is done with accrual. I'm not answering your question.
Let me ask you a different question then. So
Yeah.
I'm looking at page 28 of 112 at the approved
Okay.
budget. And I guess what confused me, there was a transfer from the general fund to the capital project fund of 453.
Hold on, Brooke's bringing us to that page.
Okay.
Um,
Right, 453, 112, that was in 45, 39, 250. Or
Okay,
39,
yeah, so
100,
that was-
39, 100, I
that's-
guess.
so that's the previous year's transfer.
Right, and then there's the interest above that. The one that confused me was down below the contribution to the fund balance in 45,
Yes.
90, 200.
So that's a balancing tool in this worksheet to zero out your budget. So it's basically saying that we're gonna save $1,076. $176,000, yes.
Right.
So it's
In the
just
in the
budgeting to
capital
it's
project
budgeting
fund.
to save the money.
So it's going to the capital project fund balance, though.
Correct,
correct?
it's in there, yep.
Right, it says contribution of fund balance. I guess my question was, is that the capital project fund or was it going back to the general fund or some other fund? But
No, it's staying in the
it's
capital
gonna add
project
to the
fund.
reserve amount, 176,000.
In theory, yes.
Cool. Cool.
It's
Well, it's
again,
unusual because we haven't
this is
had,
like-
I
this
don't
is
think
a-
I've ever seen an entry in this account code before, so I just wanted to understand what it was.
we-
But everything
not
else
use it
looks
in
in
our
order and really most of the transfers for this summer's projects aren't in these numbers yet because they're going to be July and August type events,
Most likely August, I would suspect.
right? Like the water fund, isn't the general fund lending the water fund some money to do its project?
Yes, and we don't know what those numbers are yet.
Right.
So that I suspect maybe in August we might know and we'll come to the council.
Right, and that'll be
It'd
in
be
the
really
26 budget. We'll look at that next month when we do the truth and taxation.
Possibly, it would be really nice if we knew those numbers by then, but I think we're up against the clock a little bit on that, and I don't know that we'll have that all figured out. It might be the meeting after.
Thank you.
Cause I think we're gonna determine the loan, the amount of, that the loan needs to be, the amount that the water fund needs when we know what the total project cost is gonna be.
Correct. So we wanna minimize it as much as possible.
Right, and we paid a lot of the bills for materials, but maybe not every last one of them, and we've not paid any. Not paid any installation costs to the ski area because they haven't, well, no, they have incurred some costs, they've assembled the pipe essentially, but the big chunk of their work for us is to begin.
And that's coming, that loan's coming from the general fund, capital projects fund to the water fund, or is it coming from the general fund itself to the water fund?
Yes, I would assume the general fund, that's how we've been thinking of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. And so it'll still be the money flowing the other way, or we're gonna get the loan amount and then think about what to do with the 400 grand loan. I know you've made a couple of payments on the 400 grand loan from the water fund back to the general fund. But so that's kind of money flowing the other direction, right?
The existing loan. Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I think the thought was that we'd repeal and replace that loan and roll it all into ones with the new numbers added in and go from there.
refinance.
I think that's exactly how you should do it. And I do think that this time, didn't we, somewhere in the process, I think we uncovered that there's actually a state loan form or form of loan document. And I would hope that we'd actually, do that this time because there's just been so much confusion about where that 400 grand came from originally. I think the consolidated amount's going to be like $1 million. And I think that we should document it, with an actual written loan rather than just, notes in the financial statement or notes in our minutes. So,
Well, we have a resolution is how we did it last time. It was that the council passed a resolution.
right. So on the payback, I think there's actually a state or a state form for the interfund loans like that we might consider using.
That's never come up before.
Well, I know, I have a recollection of what John is describing. It's a vague one, but there is a process that we should follow that I do think comes from statute or, the auditor's office. That
Yeah.
hopefully will yield a more transparent loan document, we could call it, and one that will be legible over time.
But even
Our
that way,
standard is, our reasons, our standard is relatively low, based on our, we don't have a great record, as we all have discussed at length. We don't have a great record of the loan that was issued whenever that was in the 90s. And we'll do better this time. And I do think John's right that there is template to follow. It may, I don't know if it's a form or if it's just simply a regulation or set, requirement from the statute, so.
But that would prevent us from doing the consolidation as far as making it cleaner to get to final
Yeah.
execution.
Totally.
Okay, but
Well, I think the important thing is to differentiate it from it being just another due to, due from kind of entry. You know what I mean? We're not going to pay that $1 million back, within the calendar year or fiscal year. And so it's not really the same as the other due tos and froms that Jen uses to, pay the bills for the water fund and pay the bills for the CapEx fund. It's a more permanent number. Did Cameron have something to say?
Yeah, I just wanted to jump in and clarify there's no form like prescribed form, but it does have to be in writing and has to meet a number of requirements. So it has to specify the fund to and from, can't be longer than 10 years, has to specify what the repayment terms are. So there's not a pre-filled form per se, but there are requirements and it does have to be in writing.
but that's a town generated document then, Cameron, correct? It's not some state document.
Correct.
Right, it's
So
meeting
we'll
the
work-
state, it's meeting the state requirements.
Sounds like it's just recording it.
Which we would do via resolution anyways.
Yeah.
I'm curious about the 10-year limit though, because our last one was not that, so I'll have to look into that.
Do any of the staff have any comments to make on your staff reports? Or how about in the absence of Jay, you guys want to say anything that stands out on the fire standpoint?
But no pressure.
Well, Jay asked to be excused. My name is Jeff Osterhout. I'm the captain on C platoon. But no, I think you touched on a lot of the fire risk. That time of year, we just need to remind everyone to be hyper vigilant. Sorry, all have picture around. Yeah. Hello, everybody. Hey. Yeah. So just remain, excuse me, hyper vigilant. The state warden did place the public sectors under a stage 1 fire restriction, no open fires unless designated areas and campgrounds and such. So fireworks, we made it through the 4th of July. Safe sound up here. Valley did pretty well too. Nice rainstorm. It was a big help.
Yeah.
On the side, and we're really grateful for that. Just one item of interest that doesn't pertain to Alps per se, but UFA did send, the Urban Search and Rescue team and FEMA sent a team to New Mexico to help with floodings. They have a Type 3 team. Then, if anybody needs CPR classes, UFA is offering those. It's a 4-hour class for $60 if you need that for any of the employees up here. And that's it. We just appreciate being able to work up here and serve you all and appreciate all you do to make our jobs wonderful.
Good.
Thank you.
Thanks.
You guys have new email addresses, right?
We do.
Finally,
Yeah.
what are those, what's the domain?
You can still send it to the .org, but we're going to .gov.
So it'll refer me automatically?
Yeah, okay, yes, it would. And I don't know what the window they're giving us for that to happen, but at some point it's gonna end wrong, and oh no, needs to update everything, but yeah, we're actually.
It's fun,
Progressing.
we just went through it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you?
Oh.
We're actually there, I know, yeah, yeah, we'll let the IT people deal with most of it and firefighters, but just. Yeah, I don't know, just keep your heads up, sure.
Like fires.
They can put out those hard fires. if you want. Right.
Mike,
Any questions for us?
Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you.
Mike, did you want to expand on anything this month?
Nothing jumps out.
Nothing jumps out.
All right.
In that case, I would like to ask for approval of the town council, the April 24th special town council meeting, the January 4th special town council meeting, and January 18th town council meeting minutes, and June staff reports and finance reports.
I move that we do so as stated by you.
Okay.
Second.
From seconds, all in favor? Aye.
Right?
Aye.
Okay, done. All right, and with that, we'll come to the mayor's report. Which I got one up. Following up on just what Jeff was saying, I hope all had a happy and safe Fourth, and the good news is that the fireworks ban in our area was apparently adhered to. We survived the holidays with no fires. And I hope this performance will extend through Pioneer Day and beyond. The town of Alta is now the legal owner of OLS, Our Lady of the Snow, so we've been issued a special use permit by the Forest Service to continue its operation on their land. Also, we've been working on a lease with ACE to allow continuation of their programs with as little hiccups as possible. And I think Mike Mon laid out the construction season probably in some detail, and I would call it with the associated Strom and Throng. And this will cause some different arrangements for our annual Wildflower Festival on the 20th, but the organizers have plans to work for handling the crowds and accommodating all who attend. And I expect with 90+ temperatures in the valley, we're going to get a lot of visitors up here. The construction will cause some exceptional schedules, which between Mike and Chris were addressed. And I would like to say for our population, we apologize for the disturbance that this has caused. But we in the town felt it was in the public interest that the public interest best served by getting these projects over with expeditiously as reasonable. At the June Town Council meeting, and then a then recent proposal by United States Senator Mike Lee to sell public lands, including some owned by the Forest Service, was discussed, and subsequently a short window open to offer comments on this idea. And after discussion with the staff, I concluded the schedule was just too brief to notice and call a meeting and assemble the town council to pass a resolution. So I took it upon myself as mayor to write a letter to the senator objecting to the concept. While this was not a resolution, it did not have the force of the same. The content of my, my letter was consistent with the sentiments expressed by the town council at the June meeting. And Senator Lee subsequently withdrew his proposal. However, I doubt that my letter was actually the triggering event that resulted in that. So that takes us, sorry about that. So that takes us to this month's astronomy report. June 23rd saw the opening of the Vera Rubin telescope, which is on an 8,700-foot mountaintop in Chile. It's about the same elevation as we are. And the reason why it's there is that unlike a location like this, is very little light pollution. There is very little water vapor in the air. And you have good access to most of the sky except the far northern latitude. So you can see most of the sky most of the time. But this is an enormously powerful machine. This is a picture of it on the screen. You get an idea of what the size is by seeing the rails, the person rails down at the bottom, the yellow one, and the ones on the platforms on the top. The mirror, which is the dominating size device, which is on the back, is 27 feet in diameter. So that's about the distance between me and Mike up there. That's one big piece of glass. Okay. And it reflects up into that circular item on the middle top there where the cursor is on, that's the camera. Camera is about the size of an automobile. And it has a focal plane on the back of it where the image is focused, which is, has 3,200 megapixels. Now, that's not a unit that we're mostly familiar with, but the laptop that Brooke has 2 megapixels. So this has 1,600 times more pixels than that guy does. Okay, from an astronomy standpoint, there's a very wide angle lens. Matter of fact, most telescopes that look at the sky look at a very small portion of the sky at a time. This looks at a portion of the sky which is about the size of 40 full moons all at once. So it takes a big picture of the sky and it goes around and it takes the entire sky every night. That's a lot of data. And this is a product of one of those images. Those two kind of gray fuzzy things in the lower right, those are 2 spiral galaxies. And you can see where there's 2 bright objects very close to another. Those are actually galaxies in collision. So it will undoubtedly make enormous discoveries. Some asteroids, there surely will be asteroids that will be on Earth crossing orbits. They've already discovered a few thousand asteroids, and the thing has been in business for less than a month. And maybe even additional planets in the solar system. Plus, there'll be lots of other objects in the sky we didn't know were even over there. So, and here's a picture of the observatory itself, which looks kind of cool for observatory. And the reason it is so shaped is because the prevailing winds, which are fairly light, come up from kind of lower left and flow across it in a way that creates very little turbulence and therefore very little disturbance to the images that are being taken. So in the astronomy world, it's a big deal. So that takes us to the next town council meeting, which will be on August 13th at 4 p.m. A day that will have an hour and 2 minutes less sunlight than today.
I think that meeting actually starts at 5 because we have the public hearing at 6 and we pushed it back a little bit.
All right, starts at 5 p.m. But it'll still be an hour and 2 minutes shorter sunlight.
Right,
and that's because
we're starting everything at 5 per this.
Okay, got it. So the fact that it's more than an hour shorter indicates we're headed towards winter.
Roger, what was the name of that telescope again?
Vera Rubin, VERA-RUBIN, 2 names. She was an astronomer in an era when there were very few female astronomers. She made some discoveries which I can't roll off my tongue, but it was highly respected.
What's also interesting is all of the data, which is some sort of bytes beyond Terra,
Right.
is available to the public every single day. When they download it, it's shared with anybody who wants it. So a lot of, private and, backyard astronomers will be working things to get the Eugene Levy effect, maybe that they might discover some stuff. And the mirror was, shaped and polished in Arizona.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. There's a famous
It's really cool.
mirror guy there's name I can't remember right now. I mean, the data is actually shipped immediately to Palo Alto, where it's processed by the Stanford Linear Accelerator Center because they have giant computers for analyzing data in these high energy
Slack, I think.
yeah, Slack, right. So it's kind of a worldwide undertaking. And
Sorry for the additional geeking out,
huge step up.
but it's amazing.
And it is amazing. Okay, next item is discussion and possible action to adopt resolution 2025-R-18 admitting the city of Holiday as a member of the Central Wasatch Commission. Turns out that this is one of these outfits that the current members have to approve the new members. And the city of Holiday has applied to be a member of the Central Wasatch Commission. And I suppose if we were really unfriendly folks, we could fix it, but I recommend that we take action to admit the city of Holiday. So.
Second.
I move that we adopt resolution 2025-R-18, admitting the city of Holiday as a member of the vaunted Central Wasatch Commission.
Okay, and John already seconded. All right,
Second.
I think we're good.
all in favor? Aye.
Resolution,
Aye.
Resolution, sorry.
Councilmember,
Oh,
yeah, sorry.
sorry.
Yes, resolution, done.
Councilmember Byrne,
Yes.
Councilmember Schilling,
Yes.
and Mayor Burke.
Yes.
Motion passes.
How great is it to have a quorum?
Yes, discussion and possible action for resolution 2025-R-19, amending the FY26 sewer fund budget. Something we had public comment on earlier.
Do we have a clicker today?
Yeah, it's right on the table.
That's as much help as I'm willing to provide you.
No, but we get that staff report up, you just need to find the packet and pull up the staff report.
I'm wondering if you're jumping ahead in the agenda.
Not
Oh,
sewer fund. Talking about the sewer fund.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah,
correct.
so there's a, in the meeting packet. There is a staff report on this agenda item. It's not super critical, there's one little graphic that shows project area. I just need someone to speak from, I apologize. I can pull it up on my computer as well.
This is a terrific project. This is the one that's associated with the ski area's new storage building and the extension of the sewer line.
Yes, and is Steve McIntosh on the call? Has he
yes, he's turned.
signed in? Okay.
Steve McIntosh.
So yes, John, you're right. This is the late breaking opportunity we stumbled upon in the past couple of months. To partner with this potentially partner once again with the ski area on a project that they are already doing to excavate and bury some utilities in a trench in a location where the town may want to have some utility lines. So the first one obviously is the Cross the Water Line project, much bigger in scope. And this one is related, yes, its concept is to put essentially a sewer main line in place of the sewer lateral that the ski area is already planning to install to its new cold storage building. Reason to do that is that it would get a sewer main line about a third of the way to the Emma Heights or West Grizzly neighborhood. We think the project could cost, when we were putting the pack together, we thought the project might cost as much as $30,000. That's engineering and material costs. The estimate at that time was more likely closer to 22,000 or so, and that was based on a couple of engineering estimates. And then a basic cost estimate, including the cost to upsize the pipe material to 8 inches and the cost of a manhole. which is $5,000 and $6,000 respectively. So in the meantime, we've potentially identified an alternative approach to getting the engineering done, which would be quite a bit cheaper. And so I'm hoping that the total cost is back down around the $10,000 to $15,000 amount. I don't see a reason, given that we have a relatively healthy balance in the sewer fund, I don't see a reason to do anything besides what the budget amendment proposes and what the capital projects, the sewer fund capital plan shows. But I did want to provide that update to you. It's a great opportunity, but I do want to acknowledge that the town has not decided to extend sewer to Emma Heights. We did have Hanson on Luce evaluate the alignment that the homeowners up there had drawn up several years ago. I think it might cost as much, well, if we were to do the whole project start to finish, or if one was to do the whole project start to finish, it would cost potentially up to $900,000 in, you know, May of 2025 dollars. That's a huge, it's a significant amount of money. It's more expensive than any of the individual capital improvements recommended by Hanson Allenluz, which we can talk through in the next agenda item. And of course, according to Hanson Allenluz, we have something like $4.5 million of what we could, I guess, call deferred maintenance on the sewer, if we're going to sort of get in the program of saving to fund replacement of the sewer. So it's really a big proposition. I think we'd all prefer to have more time to evaluate whether this is a good use of, you know, $10,000 to $12,000 and think through all the implications of doing it. But it is a very timely opportunity that will go away if we don't take it right now. It's not a substantial amount of money. I'll highlight that our water and sewer operators have recommended installing sewer to the houses in West Grizzly because of its very close proximity to the Bay City Tunnel. It's basically adjacent to the Bay City Tunnel. Spills from your pump trucks on the Michigan City Road are dangerously close to our water source, and of course the ground up there is exceedingly porous through the history of mining. So anyway, there are some reasons why it might be a good idea to install sewer at West Grizzly in the future. We just have a whole lot more planning to do before the town is ever going to take the lead in that project. So all that being said, you know, the recommendation remains to adopt this budget amendment. Steve, sorry, is Steve on the call?
Yeah.
Okay, so Steve, if you guys have any questions for Steve about the way this opportunity came to light, I think it basically came to light in a conversation between Steve and Dan Foxman and Al Descaria about their utility plans, you know, within the past 2 months, basically. And of course, in the meantime, you know, permitting on these two Scaria projects is still in progress, and you know, everybody in town is working on these projects right now. So there's a lot to talk about with the Scaria's construction projects, and this is a part of that.
Okay, any questions or discussion? John?
I'm enthusiastic about, you know, I think another big thank you to the Scaria is in order. I think they've created a couple of great opportunities for us this summer to piggyback on their projects, and you know, we're saving certainly over $100,000 at least combined on the two projects, and I'm appreciative of that. And it's nice to be working with the Scaria on these things, and great job by our staff for moving quickly, getting the engineering and approvals so that we can take advantage of the opportunity that the Scaria presents.
Ditto on that. Great.
Shall we have a vote?
I
I
move that we adopt resolution 2025-R-19, amending the FY 26 sewer fund budget.
Second.
It. All right.
Councilmember Burke,
Yes.
Councilmember Schilling,
Yes.
and Mayor Burke.
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right. Next is, discussion of possible action to adopt resolution 2025-R-20, repealing and replacing the capital projects plan.
So this is just to make sure all the documents match numbers. So this includes the sewer fund capital projects plan, so we've updated it based on the numbers that you just passed in the
Okay.
sewer fund budget.
And so it's necessitated this resolution because you're,
Because the previous one.
okay, because you're combining them, it's a subset of that then in essence.
Well, the
Am
capital,
I thinking about it wrong?
so. I think sometimes the terminology can be a bit confusing. We have a capital project plan document that includes the capital project fund, the water fund and the sewer fund
yeah.
capital projects.
Okay.
And so because the sewer fund capital project is a subset of this
It's
bigger capital projects plan, we have to update it there too, so that everything matches.
I'm good with that if you guys are.
Yes.
So it's
Well,
not
I
anything
would-
different.
I would also note that the other thing it corrects, it not only lines up the sewer fund, but it looked like there was a formula error before and we weren't counting the $9 million building, and it makes that correction as well. So I think that's important. And for the first time, really, long road coming, Chris, driving these studies to we're now at the point where we're able to actually read them and have some numbers. And we know that if you add all three of the studies up for the various funds, it's about $20 million worth of CapEx. And so that's exciting to me that, this is something Chris has worked hard on for a couple of years now. And, we finally are have some numbers down on a piece of paper. A lot of thoughts going to need to go into prioritizing which projects, and the engineers' priorities may not line up exactly with our financing options, but it's great to have a number, and I congratulate you for reaching this milestone point, Chris.
Well, thank you, John. I appreciate that. I'm proud of it. I do want to preview the next presentation, by saying that, as I acknowledged to the council, late last week, when I got the facilities plan back from the consultants a couple days prior to that, cost estimates for the sort of test fit concepts, were higher than I was anticipating. So I've spent a lot of time thinking back through that, and I understand what I did. I'm not even gonna say I went wrong at this point, but, so at any rate, the $9 million in the general fund capital plan for a new building is still really extremely high level, and as we'll talk about some more coming up, no decision's been made on that whatsoever. The nature of the project, the cost, the way we would fund it, any of that. So, and I do just wanna refer some of the compliments back to my colleagues, Jen, for keeping track of all these documents. I didn't even think about updating the sewer fund plan to get this all done. So it's just one of the vast array of documents that Jen manages to keep us on track and transparent. And Molly, I think something we're gonna need to do in the next phase of capital planning is start to delegate out some of these projects, and so to the rest of the staff, thank you in advance.
Yay, team.
So,
Team is right.
In the spirit of that, I move that we adopt resolution 2025-R-20, repealing and replacing the capital projects plan.
Second.
All in favor? Oh, no, sorry.
Councilmember Byrne,
Yes.
Councilmember Schilling.
Yes.
And Mayor Burke.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay. All right, next.
Can I add one
is
thing
our,
to that? Can I add one thing to that discussion quickly? The other thing we're going to have to do in terms of these projects is start to think about how we're going to pay for them and how paying for them is going to affect their priority. Right now, the $9 million building is pretty far down the list in terms of things we're going to do. And I think that, I think we're going to end up wanting to try to get to that one sooner and not have it be
Yeah.
the last one on the list, because I think the need to, get Mike Morey in a different space is compelling, and that it's going to it's reaching an urgent kind of level. So
And John,
I think there'll be
in
some
the spirit
exciting
of-
decisions to be made about the order in which we do these things.
I think in the spirit of your observation, I agree wholeheartedly, is, you know, getting some time with staff and elected leadership and start putting this together, like we discussed last town council meeting, which is how we budget it and what are these things and what's the priority. And I think.
And
we
what
see that
and what
coming
is the
next
funding
couple
going to
months.
look like? What are the funding options going to look like? I'd put on the end of your list there, Dan.
Yeah, no, yeah, that was my first item on the list.
Yeah. So it's exciting, exciting point.
Yeah, I mean, we may not know exactly how we're going to do this, but we know we have a much better handle on what we're gonna do.
Yep, and we're gonna figure it out.
Yes.
That's exactly what we're gonna do.
Yep.
Okay, now, update on OS.
OLS, yeah, hit it.
So yes, we are the proud new owners of OLS. The real estate purchase contract was executed on June 30th. As we had planned, so that was nice.
Very cool.
Yeah, we have submitted our special use permit and we are waiting to receive that. So it should be no more than a week from now.
I thought we had received it, sorry.
No.
about
That's
that.
okay.
We submitted the application.
Yeah.
And they basically send us back the form with signature lines, so we signed it, and sent it to them.
Yeah, so we're just waiting to receive the final executed copy
Got
of
it.
that, which we should, I guess, get any day now. We are 99.99% of the way there on our lease agreement with Ace.
Right on.
So, can't say that we have it signed yet, but we're super, super close. I'm hoping that we'll be able to execute that by the end of the week. And then we have started working on a property management agreement with them. That'll probably take another couple weeks before we have it fully executed, but this is to allow them to do the rentals for us, as we've talked about, so. We had radon mitigation done today. That project went pretty well. Molly kind of ran that, which was awesome. And we'll do some testing and see if it's been taken care of, we need to do anything further, so. And then we will start soon, and we've had small separate conversations about the front of the building, meaning like the signage and probably putting the town of Alta's name on it at some point, and Ace, and probably taking the cross down at some point, some things like that. So we're beginning stages of that, but thinking about it.
Do you, so you're obviously feeling good about the ACE relationship, because it's kind of a two-part, two-portion, sort of agreement, and they're feeling good, they're feeling better than before?
Conversations with Sarah have been excellent.
Yeah, I'm
We
so
work
happy to hear
together
that.
very, very well. Everything's positive. I was a little. I had wanted some things to be done by now, but she's totally fine. We're fine. Everything's moving along.
That's
So
great.
we're doing it right. We're just taking our time. It took longer than, but a week or two is not gonna make a big difference in the end.
No, and they're already scheduling and things
The-
have continued.
They are not scheduling other events, but they're doing their own events.
Okay. All right, cool.
So,
Yeah,
and
they-
she said she's not ready for that anyway, so
Did the church take with them whatever they wanted
they
to take
did.
with them?
Yep,
Okay.
yep.
But not the cross.
And then we've been kind of cleaning out the stuff that doesn't need to be there that they did and stuff, so.
Got it.
So we're getting to know the building, Molly's gotten a tour, and our building maintenance person, and we're getting to know it.
Good.
Walk around some more.
It's a fairly simple building to get to know, I would expect. Well, no building's actually simple. Boy, good news.
Well, Josh said it's concrete, so
What's that?
as Josh said, it is concrete.
Yeah, I think that I commend you folks.
Oh, yeah.
Have pulled this thing off extremely well.
Thanks for everything you guys did and do to make as many people happy as we can. You guys are doing a great job.
Yep.
Great
job.
Okay, presentation, discussion of water and sewer facilities planning and update on approach to strategic planning. That's, we're back for Chris.
Yes, so. I'm going on a limb here, I put some slides together, finished them at, 2 this afternoon. That was a proofreading session. There is only a very small amount of new information here. Beyond what has been presented and discussed at previous council meetings and beyond what I sent out on, Friday afternoon. It is complete cost estimates for the consultants test fit recommendations for essentially functional space. It's a, square footage and space programming based cost estimate for a couple different concepts. So that's in here. Otherwise, it's not new information. Again, I feel like I'm going a little bit out on a limb because I really don't like to, reveal that kind of stuff fresh in a meeting. And I know the council doesn't like to be blindsided by that kind of stuff either, but I'm feeling more comfortable about, I understand what happened as I extracted cost estimate information and put it in budget committee presentations and council meeting presentations and the capital projects plan. I actually don't think they're all that far off. So anyways, rather than just punt on this until August, there's so much work to do. I just wanted to talk through what the recommendations are on water and sewer facilities. I know that the header here says strategic planning updates. I really don't have very much to share on an approach to strategic planning, other than just to sort of reinforce some of the things that we've heard from you guys about what you think our priorities should be as we put those meetings together and work through them. So like I said, I got the, they were intended to be final drafts, but of course I have more comments. We have more comments on the water and sewer master plans from Hanson and Allen Lewis. We got those like on Tuesday last week. They're really pretty close. The full documents, that they're really cool. We presented many of the components of them, the kind of technical components to you guys. But in the full documents, you'll see kind of the connections and existing system inventory, growth projections, the water and sewer system modeling products, which we're required to do. We're required to have an updated water model in order to get actual distribution and technical projects approved by the state. So the key reason to do the project, those are all wrapped up.
And Steve helps you with that.
Steve McIntosh?
Yeah.
Well, this is really engineering product.
Okay.
But Steve has certainly been super helpful in scoping the master planning projects, reviewing their work product, and so forth. So, finally, capital improvement recommendations. Those have really not changed. So really the bottom line of these water and sewer documents is that the final versions of them are just sort of they're gonna provide the town council and the constituents more of a complete picture of how we arrived at the recommendations. So yes, like I said, no real changes. Here's the water capital improvement plan recommending 4 projects. In the medium term future, one of which is underway. That's the second largest project. The only change here is that on my recommendation, we moved the storage tank down to project number 3, and that is because we are moving forward with this lower alpha distribution line project, which is again that kind of refers to as the Hellgate Loop in the 2014 capital improvement plan. So that's the next project on our list. We've got funding in the budget for engineering on that project this summer. And then the capital projects plan says we will fund the capital, fund the actual, new water line down there in Hellgate next summer. So then the tank, the tank's a little bit up in the air because of course, the Trans Estate is, would have to build a tank. In order to develop a project on the property and, that, if they do that, then our storage needs at the town may be less, so it's just not, given all the moving parts and pieces in politics with that one, it's not the first priority. However, it may be potentially the most urgent, so. And then finally, we have the, replacement of an asbestos concrete type segment down there on Highway 210, just up canyon of Hellgate. Oops. Here's the sewer plan. Yeah, four projects, again, yeah, no change to this plan, to this, to these recommendations. The first on our list is the, Gold Miner SAG project. The next one is the, that little alignment segment of the pipe in between essentially Peruvian Estates and what I call East Hellgate, which I believe is platted as the falls at Sugar Plum. I can never remember Cotton Creek subdivision. I don't know. Anyways, and Steve tells us that he doesn't actually think that this alignment needs to be that long because apparently we've replaced the section of it in the past. So that's just something that we have to ground truth going forward. John, do you have a comment? John Bird?
No, I'm sorry. I'm zooming in on my computer. Sorry.
Okay.
Was I looking ahead? Needed to say something. Just trying to see if I could find my house.
The analog, handout. So here's another way of looking at it. Yeah, these sort of more urgent projects, according to the engineers, total $1,011,000. That's their cost, their sort of planning level cost estimates for us. The pipeline recommendations, the pipeline replacement recommendations, these were, I felt like we had maybe overlooked this a little bit in writing the scope for these water and sewer planning projects. But I'm happy with the way these turned out. I think they're extremely high level, but now we have a baseline assumption, a data point for how the town could decide to begin budgeting for system replacement over time. The numbers are frankly a little staggering on the scale of our water and sewer budgets at 3.7 million for pipeline replacement in the water system and 4.2 million pipeline replacement in the sewer system. That's just based on putting a certain amount of money in the accounts annually. Based on state recommendations, we don't have to do that. I think that's something for us to discuss and evaluate when we get into this next round of strategic planning conversations. But we're not doing it presently. We maintain a decent balance in the sewer fund and we do what we can in the water fund, but obviously the needs have been a little bit more, I don't know if the needs are greater in the water fund, but we seem to find a reason to spend money on the water fund or on the water system more often. Here's the way the capital projects plans look. These are just screenshots, and I apologize, they're very sort of small resolution. These are screenshots from the meeting packet this month, so this shows those expenses in the sewer fund related to the cold storage sewer line project with the ski area. So there's 15 in there for that. 45 is 15 for engineering on that project, which is going to cost a lot less than that. Then it's also engineering for the Gold Miners parking lot sewer project we hope to do next summer. So you can see, we've got the cost for those projects programmed out in alternating years with engineering projects in between them. It's a working assumption. So any questions on the water and sewer where we are with that. Like I said, the documents themselves, there were just a couple things that didn't get tightened up the way I wanted them to. And given that, you know, I had them within a day of the packet going out, I decided not to, send them out. But again, we've reviewed, the capital projects recommendations have not changed. We're basically planning to do them already. I know that at least John Byrne will appreciate seeing the total picture. And those will be really nice to have on the website, so I will provide those to you as soon as possible. On the facilities plan, so, you'll recall the last presentation that we had on facilities planning was in May of the council meeting. We presented one of the key components of the scope of work with FFKR. That was the facility condition assessment. And the test fit space planning concept. So the facility condition assessment was where they, you know, they did all this work to evaluate cost to maintain and bring up to code our existing buildings. And then they calculated the cost to replace the buildings like for like, and with the functional space that they heard from staff, the town could use to optimize our service portfolio. And it you know, it assessed, it compared those costs to each other, basically, and came up with a score, you know, beyond which replacement was recommended. And then the test fit space planning concepts, those are just like what we've been discussing, those are two ways that the town could decide to, you know, arrange and make adjacent our functional space, or functional spaces. But two of those are really the basis for their cost estimates going forward and their final recommendations to the town. So over the past couple of months, we've been kind of working on the document, which is pretty big. Been reviewing drafts of some really cool sections of that document, especially the finance encyclopedia. The pre-designed recommendations, it's a little bit more of a narrative, but to me, it's a helpful way. I think it will be of some utility as we approach strategic planning about what facility are we gonna build. So I would recommend the council view that package that I sent out on Friday, especially that finance encyclopedia. So like I said, we didn't get that complete draft until July 2nd, I believe it was. And what gave me pause was the executive summary, which I hadn't seen, and like I've been saying, it had a complete cost estimate. And I'll get into that a little bit with you guys in the next slide. They also sent over the Tom Moore Toilet Historic Structure Report. Really excited about that. But I was anticipating that it was going to include a cost, it would include cost estimates for the recommendations, and it does not. I went and looked back at our scope of work contract, and we didn't actually ask them to do that, so they didn't do it for us. So that is an error on my part. I know I've been telling the council that we're gonna get those. I've already started talking with some folks about how to get cost estimates. For at least the low end recommendation to restore the function, the building so that it doesn't continue to deteriorate. But if you haven't dug into that historic structure report, I think it's really cool.
Using the interdisciplinary condition assessment, I find that a very government related.
Interdisciplinary, yes, it does. It's buzzword, isn't it? Yeah. Yeah.
It sure is an exciting design they came up with though for the Tom Moore toilets with the ADA ramp and the whole deal, man. I thought that was very attractive.
Well, you know, John, when the snow melted and we got J.R. Richards, the structural engineer, and Steve Cornell, the historic architect, and Nate Henry, the project manager, I think it was those three guys and me and Molly up there. It was kind of a cool cloudy day in May. And they just charged right inside the building. And I've like kind of pushed open the, you know, mouse chewed plywood and looked inside and thought like, this could be worse. But I went all the way in and I can picture that thing functioning in the future as something much better than I could in the past. I mean, the report says it's in bad shape, and it certainly is, but it really could be in a lot worse shape, and it's really cool in there. Yeah, it's really cool in there. There's more space inside than I thought there was. There's 4 toilets in there. Which is crazy. So anyways,
Yeah,
you know,
nifty design too. I mean, they're preserving the old building, but it's, very inviting design. It's gonna have an ADA ramp. I thought it was really, really good work.
Yep. Thank you for that. So, the test pit space plan concepts. We reviewed these in May. Basically, these both assume, all of the additional, functional space, that staff indicated would, allow the town to provide services better. Much of that is space for the marshal's office. We did include some, space in our current facilities that, I think we all agree we could do without. That's administrative space, that we just don't use frequently enough to prioritize. The way these two concepts work, test pit 1 is the concept where, we take the entire Alpha Marshal's office, including dispatch, and we move it to a building on this site that would. And that building would include AMO functions and existing functions provided on the site. Of course, with OLS in the picture, whether we need the space we're in right now anymore is an open question. But that's test pit 1. Test pit 2 is the concept where, with accessibility as a priority or as the priority, we take the functions the municipal functions that are most public facing, which are arguably administration and the police department component of the Marshals program, and we move those into a new facility on this site while renovating renovating the town office building to be the dispatch center. So those are the two. We've got AMO plus community center on this site is test pit 1. Test pit 2, or concept 2, whatever we're gonna call it in the future, is police, administration, post office, storage and garage, in this building, and dispatch and their quarters in the town office. That makes sense?
Yep.
And these are just, I'm gonna continue to highlight that these are recommendations from a consultant.
Yeah, and we're entering
These are
into
not-
this phase of how we're gonna pay for it, regardless of option, and what is our prioritization over the summer.
Yeah.
So it's great to put this out, and I think it's getting the dialogue going, and I think we're also getting it to the public, which I think is hopeful.
Yeah. Yes, I agree. So on the cost estimates, like I said, like I've been saying, we've introduced cost estimates in the May 2025 budget committee and council meetings. It was a rather hasty decision by me that I made based on some material I had just received as we were getting ready for a budget committee meeting. I had just received those slides we were presenting at the council meeting. We have a figure in the capital projects plan of 9 million for a new building, right? The way I came up with that was using the cost estimates in that facility condition assessment. I took the cost to replace existing functions in the buildings that we believe are end of life, or that we believe are end of life. That's Alpha Central and this building. And the total construction cost for those two projects is 6.2 million. So that's the low end of the range that I came up with on my own, based on information from the consultant. The high end of my range was the cost to replace all that programming, all the square footage associated with it, and the additional Alpha Marshal's office programming and whatever additional programming we plugged in. So I use that as the high end of my range, and the cost of that is 12.5 million. So roughly in between those two numbers, get 9 million. That's what I was recommended that we include just as a, you know, North Star.
It's a starting
Point
point.
in time. It's not North Star because the North Star never changes.
And what dollar per square foot did you use?
Well, it's a really good question. We haven't talked that much about it. I believe we use $850 per square foot, and I know that that is not. That would be a bargain for construction in Little Cotton Canyon. Especially if the construction's an avalanche campus. And I did talk through that with consultants, and they suggest that they think they thought it was reasonable to assume that as a municipal government on a budget, we would prefer, we would select less like lower end finishes, and we would cost engineer in a way that perhaps a business building a customer service facility, point of sale might not, or somebody building a high-end residential property in Alta might not.
Yeah, level 4 sheetrock versus level 5. No, seriously, those, you take that approach because we're here to be efficient and it's purpose built, and the aesthetics we can throw up later.
Right.
And I think it's okay, 850, it's a starting point. You know, we gotta talk about how we're really gonna budget for this, and we're gonna talk about what goes in these facilities, depending on which option we elect. But I think us moving, I think, Chris, you're just moving us forward, and we're just putting this out there. So don't worry about beating yourself up. It's a good starting point.
Well, I think I'm past beating myself up. I just wanna,
I don't know that you are, but
because you know, these numbers are out there now and they're gonna change, and I want us to be at least in the habit of discussing what they really mean and what we don't know about that. And the construction, the cost per square foot, Craig, I mean, it's a huge question, and we haven't talked all that much about it, so.
but we're gonna talk about it soon.
Yeah, and I'm gonna go on to beating yourself up. The only time you actually know the budget for construction is after it's finished. And, right, and as you get closer and closer to it, your error bars go down.
Yeah.
But this far out, cause we're years far out, the error bars are large, so just, we're sophisticated adults, we understand that, and just expect that.
You're not breaking out your calculator, are you?
No.
That's good.
Okay, so here's the new information. So this table is from the executive summary in the complete draft facility master plan document that FCARE provided middle of last week. I didn't understand it and the difference between it and the numbers I've been presenting well enough to send it out last week. And as you can see, these are bigger numbers, right? So the cost for test pit 1, 14.6.
Yep.
That was on my previous estimate. That's an increase against my previous estimate of 12.5. Cost for test pit 2, which yields a bigger building on this site and extensive renovations to the town office, is round up to $16.7 million. Whereas another a previous estimate for that alternative that I have totally made up myself based on $800 per square foot is 14 million. So just to be, let me explain a couple things. So in my $6 to $12 million range, $12 million is test pit 1. And $6 million is something below that.
Yeah.
That's just like for like, basically. So that was me saying, you know, I think I'm reading between the tea leaves. I think we're probably gonna take the cheaper option and plugging that in, or recommending we plug it in. So that's anyways, does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. The difference is that you can see 3 kind of, you know, vertical sections of this cost estimate sheet. Those facility condition assessment numbers that I based my budget
stuff on are the first two sections. It doesn't include the last section. John probably knows more than all of the rest of us combined
Yeah.
about the difference between a design contingency and an owner's construction contingency. But those are just examples that they're really, those figures get pretty big. When you start talking about $10 million projects or $5 million projects. And Nate, talking to Nate the other day, he said that these percentages for general condition, bonds, insurance, overhead, and profit, and this design contingency, like those are, I think they're the opposite of conservative. He just cited a couple of projects where those percentages are greater, and all this stuff is just up in the air with tariffs and cost of steel.
Oh, man.
Yada. So
I predict the US economy will stabilize.
You should forget
Why
what.
don't do that? I'm just trying to brought some, I said, your dreams. That, you got those from John? John, you provided those?
no, those are from Air.
Oh, okay.
It's just-
You know what the most important thing is in terms of contingency is getting married to your design. If you're married to your
Right.
design going in, the contingency works out. If you think you're going to build X and then you end up tinkering with the design and changing things, have a bunch of change orders, that's where it falls apart. That's what I know about construction.
Yeah.
That's exactly.
You got to
I
get
think
really
the good
married
thing-
and committed to the design before you put the shovel in the ground. That's the most important thing.
And I think, John, I think collectively we'll be able to do that. We'll map it and we stick with it because there's always improvements we can make and we just have to have the discipline to say, this is what we planned, this is what we budgeted. And if we're short on something, it's for future generations of leaders to do that.
Yeah.
Because it's the way it always goes when you build these projects.
Yeah, the
Well,
other
and it's
comment-
also harder with, when you go to a more complex building with multi-use, which is kind of what those test fits look like to me, is that, we're going to get a lot of different things in there. And I think that makes it harder. One thing I'd be interested in is, could we come up with a test fit that if you just were going to build the Marshall, the building that he needs, not wants, but needs, sort of as a freestanding spot, and whether it becomes a module in a bigger building or just a freestanding building, how much would that cost? If we did it really simply, could that be done for like $5 million, or is that more than half of test fit one? Or, that would be interesting to me to just sort of isolate the Marshall's need. And I think that would help in the decision making.
And it also is contingent upon keeping the entire marshal's office, which is public safety. Are they dividing out, as was mentioned, and it's been some discussion, or are they then combined? I think that will be the key pivot point on that, trying to come up with a number like that, John. And I think they're more interconnected than would be easy.
Yeah, I think trying to do it so they're all in the same building makes a lot of sense. And then trying to meet the statutory requirements that Mike's been alluding to that I don't understand in enough detail to really speak to, but I know Mike has in his mind some really specific requirements for the building. And it'd be interesting to sort of isolate that element of this project.
That's great. Idea, John.
That's a really good idea, John, and I'll say something which I think is obvious, but I just don't wanna forget it. Which is, we effectively have two things here. We've got the buildings and then we've got the infrastructure replacement. On the infrastructure replacement, we're not gonna be able to do much. There's no value engineering or little that we can do on the infrastructure replacement. About the only thing we can do is determine the timing of it. On the building, we've got a lot more opportunity for value-added engineering, and we need to keep our total financing ability intact over the time frame that we're gonna build.
All good points there.
Yep.
Value engineering is an amazing process if you haven't been through it. I mean, those guys pay for themselves. You pay a consultant to come in and he says, oh, we got to line the pipes up so all the pipes are on top of each other and you're going to save $10,000. And, they just go through every single thing and they more than pay for themselves when they do it. It's an amazing process. Because you're saving money.
But we could move out to Central over here, I just looked at Mike, sorry, never mind. We all love out Central.
But John, I really think your idea of, okay, let's look at the minimum we could do to accommodate the office, Marshall's office, cause we pretty much have to do that. And then we have to be very circumspect about expanding beyond that.
Okay, so. Like I said. Water and sewer plans, I mean, they're. We have those, the water and sewer plans are more or less in place. And we need to, think about. We need to get serious about how we're gonna fund those projects on the 10-year horizon. And, think about whether and how to fund, online. Pipeline replacement in both systems, on buildings, we don't have a recommendation on a facilities project. And we've not made any decisions about funding a new building. We have a number in the capital projects plan. But that does not obligate the town. And we obviously have a lot more to discuss on how to pay for a buildings project. So, I'm gonna keep working on wrapping up comments and revisions to the documents with the civil engineers. The facility master plan. I actually think there's less review to do, although Molly found a couple pretty, Molly, of course, has been reading it very closely and found a couple things that we need to change. So we have more work to do with both teams of consultants to finalize those documents. I would like to post those on their website and distribute them to the council as soon as possible. Review them in August again in the council meeting. I do recommend that you guys, if you haven't had time to review those sort of highlights that I sent out on Friday, I would strongly recommend you do that. I do think that it's interesting, both the water and sewer documents and the facilities plan, they both have funding recommendations, and I should have asked ChatGPT to compare them to make sure they were telling the same story, because they don't exactly, but basically the facilities master plan has a pretty extensive compendium of funding options, and most interesting to me is just an analysis they did of what the property tax impacts will be of various general obligation bond amounts, and GO bonds, of course, are bonds against property tax revenue approved by voters that get paid by property taxpayers. So that's just, that to me, really, that helps me picture. That's a piece of the puzzle, and that's the kind of information we need to take into strategic conversations about funding these projects. We're still gonna move towards a series of special meetings to discuss these things, and I've heard loud and clear that we want to focus on funding, what and how, how much, informed by just kind of a Reader's Digest version of these projects and you know, the cost for them that we've been discussing. I don't think we want to talk really much more at all about what our facilities project is going to be until we've had that discussion. Until we can also just take a step back and recommit to the kind of the guiding principles of our approach to facilities. What are our priorities? Is it accessibility? Is it critical? Is it getting critical functions in sustainable buildings? What are critical functions? So is it sustainability? I mean, there were some NA numbers in those cost estimates, and for LEED registration and energy modeling. I mean, those can have a big impact on the cost of a project, especially in a place like Alta. So wouldn't be out of line for a ski town to, you know, prioritize sustainability or energy efficiency in the building, but of course our budgets are really tight and the needs are significant. So again, before we attempt to make a decision about what that building is going to be, I think we need to really get serious about what our priorities are in principle, and that will help the actual programming of this building crystallize faster, I think.
I think, and I think we've had consensus on this, but I wanna restate for the jury. I think as long as we're having both meetings, because and dividing them out, budget and how to get the money. And requirements, for lack of a better word, just using that as an umbrella. I think we have to have both of those, and I like that they're separate, because otherwise you get in circles. If we're gonna do them both before the election, which I recommend we do, because I think we're setting some strategic direction, and maintaining some momentum without pulling the trigger and obligating some incoming people.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
I would offer, I think the requirements though should, if we're gonna do both meetings, I think we should do requirements first, because that will shape the budget more than how we get the money and how much and how we're gonna budget for it would shape the requirements. Love you have them both, and I think we're in a position to do both of those, even though we haven't put them on a calendar yet.
Yep.
So I think this is great, because overall, I think we're gonna keep moving forward for defining requirements, how to do it, and prep the next group of people that are standing around this table. And you 4 people who are not allowed to leave. This is a threat more than a request.
John?
Well, I was just gonna say, I could also see us tackling both subjects in each of the 2 days. You know what I mean? Like 3 hours on one of those subjects is surely going to be beating your head against the wall. So, we could talk, have half the meeting be about each of them, each meeting. That could also work out pretty well. I think it would keep it fresher and easier to
That's a good
remain
idea.
engaged.
That's a good idea too.
We probably are not gonna, we're not gonna like schedule a meeting about facilities and go in our current position and come out with an RFP to hire a
Right.
hire a construction firm with an architect.
Yeah.
Design build contract.
And I think we're gonna cross the streams, to quote Ghostbusters, as we're having these meetings, like you said, John, and maybe we can structure it that way. And still have 2 meetings, because I think we won't get it all done in one anyway, even if we make solid progress in either category.
Yeah, and then you're not sitting there and there's like a whole bunch of taboo, okay? Like it would natural moment to talk about the funding comes up, and we're not going to talk about funding today because we're only going to talk about facilities. So I think it just gives us a little more flexibility and let the thing proceed more organically.
Yeah, I think we do that pretty well as a group anyway. The 2 retreats we've had, I think we tend to get some of that, and since we're all rowing in the same direction,
That helps.
I just think I have high confidence we'll make some progress and stage things for the upcoming couple of years.
Now, is your assumption that these are open meetings?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, mine is. I think they need to be open meetings.
Yes, the retreats have been open. We haven't, put up the sandwich boards around town necessarily, but it's in our interest for our constituents, the taxpayers and voters to know what we're talking about on this stuff. For sure.
Absolutely, because they're going to end up paying for it. And so the more we involve them or give them access to our thinking as the process evolves, the more buy-in they'll have when the time comes to write the check or sign the bill,
The stuff you put out
whatever it is.
already, Chris, it's not premature.
Yeah.
It's just establishing, what we're trying to do here in a ballpark.
Yeah.
And that's important to message.
Some jurisdictions will bring in like a PR firm when they're gonna do a bond election. I assume those are large bonds, like like a $500 million for schools or whatever they do down in the valley every other year, but no, if you are gonna do a geo bond and the voters have to approve that, yes, it's a big deal, and you gotta make sure people understand, and you ideally want to support it, because if they don't, you don't get it. And then we've got a jail that's bursting at the seams or whatever happened when that bond didn't pass in the fall.
But everything's at scale, like, to me, $14 million is $500 million down the canyon.
Oh,
That's a big money, that's a big number for us.
It's a huge number.
But I
Yeah,
also think
but
strategically,
you know, property
Uh, I-
taxpayers today pay in aggregate, what, 400 grand? And I mean, I'm not advocating it be more, but like the town share of what we pay is of residential, isn't it like $400,000? So when you
Well,
think about $14 million, I mean, that's a 20-fold increase in the, you know, in the amount of money we got to generate. Of course, that it's over time, but still, these are really big numbers compared to the amount of property tax that Alta residents pay that actually gets through to Alta is such a small number today. When you think about paying the GO, it's it's going to be a huge property tax increase unless we can, you know, get very long financing.
but I also think, and I agree 100% because we don't have a lot of properties that can generate, that we're not gonna increase that in any measurably, you know,
Significant way.
yeah, significance, the word I was looking for. But I would also say this, I think we're in this very good position, strategically speaking here, because we've acquired a community center, which is no longer part of this equation, but we have these requirements primarily in public safety that we know need to be addressed. Because we're in a good position to start pursuing them, better now than 10 years from now when the cost will be higher. And so
And I think the part about the public safety is right on, Dan. That's the part that people are going to relate to.
Right.
You know what I mean? That's the part that I think is going to be the most likely for us to be successful in selling to the voters is the idea that we need to build a public safety building.
Yep, I agree. And it's certainly my focus.
Two questions, Chris. First, slides are good. Are you gonna distribute them?
Yeah, we'll post them.
Okay, cool. The second one is, we've talked about the two meetings. Have you got any dates in mind?
No, I don't, but I've got 4 days to do that before I was down for a little while, so. That's my highest priorities.
We'll all look at inboxes.
Yeah.
This is really good dialogue for the town, regardless of what we decide to do. I think this is really important.
Thanks.
Well done, troops.
I hope that seemed like a worthwhile presentation. John said, well, you know, you could probably bag it this month, and I was like, oh, yeah, maybe I could. Especially-
No, I will admit that I didn't read the financing encyclopedia because I couldn't read those first couple charts on my computer screen. So I'm going to have to put myself in the penalty box for that.
Oh, geez. You've got yeah.
I'll read them before next time.
Okay.
Hey, with
Step
that,
away, step away.
let's turn to new business. We only have 3 people here to introduce new business. Don, do you have anything in the way of new business that we should?
I just thought I'd mention in the interest of public safety, I'm not sure this word's really getting around, but we've had a little thing over in West Alta where it turns out the sprinkler heads in almost everyone's homes, the whole Sugar Plum thing, they're all bad. And one of my neighbors having to replace every single one in his house, and you have to change the drop. So, I mean, it's just like a plumbing nightmare. And but the Peak Alarm or the fire company brought us some test results that demonstrated that after the 30 years they wouldn't release any longer. And it's really turning into quite an issue in over where I live. And all the Sugar Plum condos, Blackjack, The View, all the houses in my neighborhood, none of the sprinklers would work if there was a fire today.
This is an aging issue.
It's an aging issue and a design issue, I guess. It was a flawed design. I'm lucky most of the drops I have, I'm just going to change the head. It's going to be okay. But some people are having to put extensions on the drop from the line, you know, because the relationship between the gyprock and the pipe.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a mess. So I just thought I'd alert people to the fact that You might want to take a look at your sprinkler heads and see if they need to be replaced.
Yeah, wow. Anything from you? Any new business?
I'm happy to enjoy the superior view with which we conduct our business.
What are you talking about?
Yes.
Oh.
You see the Ilian Villa on Vale Ridge in profile here. That's pretty cool.
It is very cool.
Okay, with that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move we adjourn.
Second.
Okay,
2 AM, John? 2 AM?
all in favor?
Yeah.
Yes.
I think they
Okay,
were-
we're all.
Watching a beautiful moonrise over the ocean here.
Great,
John, are you voting to adjourn?
He is.
I'm voting to adjourn.
yeah.
You still need to say yes.
Sorry.
Yes, I'm voting to adjourn. Yes.
It would be bad if only two of us did, because we only have 3 people here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, 11 minutes over program time, that's not too bad.
Good dialogue.
Is your hand up, Mr. Goldner? Or are you just stretching?
Sorry, no, just stretching. But
Just
hello.
stretching.